Now that Bitcoin has reached 52,500, what is next for it? Well, I have the Ichimoku cloud pulled up here, and I'm just going to show you some things that did develop just now, right? After it broke out above the cloud back in October of 2023, well, it's been going higher and higher and higher ever since the top here at 73,794, and then slowly it's been drifting lower and cooling off. And sure enough, it's still cooling off. And then recently it just broke below the conversion line and the baseline here and flipped it to a resistance. But now we can see it finally back tested the cloud. So is this going to be the max pain? Are we going to be like all set to go higher now? Well, I don't really think so yet. I think it's just a process, but what I do believe that this is the beginning of the process for going higher, and I believe that it could take a couple weeks and it could take a couple months, but essentially this was the first step. The first step was touching the top of the cloud. Now, whether it goes deeper or not, that's still yet to be determined. And I think the probability of going a little bit deeper is there. And I'm going to show you why in just a second. But first, I'm going to show you why it might have a little bounce before that, because when you add on the SMAs, you can see that the 50-week moving average right there was finally touched for the first time since it broke out here in March of 2023. So that's the first successful backtest of it. So perhaps price will not go lower, right? But I still believe if price does go back up to a resistance zone, it could roll over and go test lower levels one last time before its ultimate bottom. And here I'm going to show you some confluence of why. So I have here pulled up the arc, right? The Gann square with the arcs and the angles and everything. So I'm going to zoom out here just so you can see it's that this arc back in 2021 was a resistance, and then going down that arc, it broke out and it flipped it to a support, and it's been trickling down that arc ever since. Right, so this is basically confirmation that a previous support or previous resistance is now flipped to a support. But when I put on the Ichimoku, when I put it back on, you can see that the bottom of the cloud does sit around the bottom of the arc, maybe there in November of 2024. So maybe it's just going to drift a little bit lower and lower and lower until maybe November or so, right around election time, and then possibly it can take off, right? I think that could be a possibility, or a little bit before, maybe like later September, it can wick below and go that way, right? So there's more confluence there. And I have one more thing of confluence, and that is if I do a trend-based Fibonacci from the low here to the high here, then I go to the low right there and I swing it across. What do we see right there? We see the 1.618 Fibonacci extension at 50,719, which is a little bit above where the bottom of the cloud is, but it does intersect with the bottom or the top arc there. Maybe next week, right? Next week it intersects there. Let me just zoom in for you, right? See, this week it kind of intersects, and even next week it intersects as well. So this week's not over, so it still could come down there and intersect exactly where that arc is with that trend-based fib extension. So is this a reliable extension level? Well, let me just take off the Ichimoku and we can see that, yeah, that one level was a perfect support, right? And then you go up to the 2.618, it was kind of a perfect resistance. Sure, it went up above a little bit, but it basically most of the time it was underneath it as a resistance. Then it was in between that my green level there of the Gann, and it would try to hold it as support, but then it broke lower, and it already touched the 1.618 once. So there's a possibility of it going back down there and touching it again. And what do you know? This week and next week, it does intersect right where my arc is. So is the pain over yet? Maybe not. Maybe there could be more capitulation through that 50-week moving average right here. Maybe a capitulation through that all the way down to the 50,000 level. And then possibly by the end of Sunday, we could come back up. Or maybe next week we'll have that capitulation event and come back down and go back up. So it's looking like it could be soon. Um, and I don't know if all the pain is over yet, right? So lots of things are lining up to maybe it wants to go retest my green arc. Maybe it wants to test the 1.618. Maybe it wants to test the bottom of the Ichimoku cloud right around there, right? Who knows? But my point is through all of this is if you look at this and it is hitting the 50-week and the top of the cloud for the first time in a long time, that means this is the very beginning of the actual support zone for Bitcoin. So if you're looking for like accumulation, in my opinion, this is the zone you want to be in, right? If you want to start buying its current price all the way down to maybe 49,000, right? That could be the zone right there, simply because this is the first time that's happened and this is getting closer and closer to all this confluence of support, and we don't know if it's going to go all the way down. So that's why this whole range should be considered a support zone starting at current price all the way down to 49,000. So with that being said, I think the max pain is not too painful after all. Yes, it would be scary to get back down to 49,000, but in actuality, if you just go down to current price to there, it's only like 7 or 8% more, right? That's nothing when it comes to crypto. And I think even if it did do that, that would be an even better time to accumulate. And it would hurt the Bitcoin miners a little bit more too, but it would just give everybody one last chance to accumulate, in my opinion, before price really wants to go up. So this is looking beautiful. It's so far a beautiful back test. This can hold. It's not necessary to go down there because there was already a wick through those levels, right? It already touched the 50-week moving average already, and it did it again, and it touched that 1.618, so it's not necessary to go down here. So this, in fact, could hold, but I'm just letting you guys know there's still a lot of confluence down here, and if it does go down to these levels, it is nothing to worry about, and it would just be a good thing to accumulate for the future.